Now, good quality propagation material is going to produce the best quality plants all the time. As far as seed goes, you want to make sure you get your seed from a reliable supplier. Now, you know, any of your well-established seed companies are going to be good. You want to look at the back of the seed packet though, and look at the expiry date. Now, for most vegetable and flower seeds, for certain, there will be an expiry date on the back. If you're buying tree and shrub seed and the supplier is reliable, there will also be an expiry date printed on the back of the seed packet. Don't plant seed after the expiry date, preferably plant it well before the expiry date. Now, you want to take note of the instructions on the back of the seed packet too. And certainly with your vegetable and your flower seed and herb seeds that you buy from well-established companies, they'll have good instructions on the back. Follow them. That's what they're there for. If you buy tree and shrub seed from a supplier and or you're buying seed that's a little bit more obscure and there aren't instructions printed on packets, ask the supplier about how to sow the seed. Some seeds don't last a long time, particularly things like rainforest seeds from very wet rainforests. They just have to be planted almost immediately or else they lose viability.
If you plan to collect seed yourself, make sure the seed source is good. Look for healthy pest and disease-free plants, and look for good characteristics such as late ripening, tasty fruits, or high yields. Timing of collection is important too. If you collect seed too early, it won't have ripened. If you collect it too late, the seed may have lost its viability, or it may be damaged by pests and diseases, or have just fallen off the plant and been dispersed away from the plant. Make sure you know how to store seed before you even start collecting it.
Now, cuttings must come from clean, healthy, pest and disease-free plants as well. Good quality cutting material is going to mean good quality plants that you're propagating. Nurserymen put a lot of effort into keeping their stock plants in top condition. The plants, that is the plants that are going to supply them with their cuttings. They may grow them in containers or they may grow them in the ground. They keep the pest and disease well under control. And the important thing is to pick the cutting material at the right stage too. You don't want cuttings with flower buds all over them or flowers on them like this, Ariostomen, because the plant's going to be putting its energies and efforts into developing those flower buds. Cutting material that is healthy, vigorous and green and has been putting on nice, vigorous new growth, like the Westringia there, that's good. That's good material to use for cuttings. This Coria, that's nice and clean, no disease on it, nice new growth from there down to there. That's all grown in the last season, and you can take cuttings off like that can make quite nice, healthy cuttings. Something like that is going to grow into quite a nice cutting, nice new plant. You need to use cuttings promptly after removing them from stock plants. Don't let them dry out and become stressed in any way. If necessary, place them in a plastic bag or bucket of water to keep them from drying out. Never leave cutting material sitting in direct sunlight or exposed to the wind. The way you treat the cutting material will depend where you are and what the climate's like. Obviously, in a very warm climate or at a warm time of year, you need to be more cautious about stopping cuttings from drying out and keeping them moist. To get good cutting material, it's a good idea to tip prune your plants regularly. Just by taking the tips off like that, what you do is you force the plant to put out a lot of side growths like this. Now, it's those side shoots that make excellent cuttings. You can take those off and you can get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe 6 or 7 side shoots to provide you with 6 or 7 cuttings if you have tip pruned something. If you don't tip prune it, you can end up with all your growths like that and just very long single shoots, and you can't make a lot of cuttings out of that. It ends up that the growth can become more spindly, it isn't as strong, and the bottom line is it's just not as good for your cutting material. If you're taking cuttings regularly, if I'm taking bits off like that, in fact every time I take cuttings I'm tip pruning it, so in a nursery it may not be necessary to consciously go around and tip prune, but if you're propagating less often, it's sometimes not a bad idea to go out and tip prune 3 or 4 or 5 months before you want the cuttings. It depends on how fast the plant grows as to how long before you want cuttings that you would tip prune.